Ladies and gentlemen, Chandigarh College of Architecture and Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy warmly welcome you to today's program titled Art and Architecture Celebrating Life. We welcome our chief guest for the evening, Mr. Anurag Agarwal, IAS Home Secretary, Chandigarh Administration. Welcome, sir. Also joining us today are some eminent personalities from the city, including Architect Kapil Sethia, Chief Architect Chandigarh, Architect Sapna, Chief Architect Punjab, Architect SHIRISH Sharma, a gem that the city has, to name a few. The highlight, of course, of today's evening is the audiovisual presentation by Architect SHIRISH BERI. I request Mr. Anurag Agarwal to please welcome Architect SHIRISH BERI and his wife, Mrs. Manasa Berry, Mrs. Manasi Berry, by presenting them with the bouquet.
Thank you.
So where do you live?
I live in Kolhapur, and not in Kolhapur, I live in the wilderness. Okay. I will come to that.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
But my work's various places, some international also.
I now request Mr. Professor Pradeep Bhagat, Principal, Chandigarh College of Architecture, and Professor Neel Malhotra, Associate Professor of Art at CCA and Chairman, Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy, to please present a bouquet of welcome to Mr. Anurag Agarwal. So wonderful.
क्या बोल रहे हैं?
Thank you.
सर आ जाइए जी हिंदी रहेगा पीछे
I come here.
Thank you, sir.
ठीक हो गया सर
हो गया.
Come.
हाँ आप भी आओ
Yeah.
ऐसा नहीं आओ
Where are you from?
I am from Lucknow.
Okay, Punjab.
Yeah.
This
Haryana.
Haryana.
I now call on Professor Pradeep Bhagat to please address the gathering.
सर मैं चेक कर लूँ माइक सर माइक ऑन है
Thank you, sir.
ठीक है
I, on behalf of my students, faculty and staff, warmly welcome the chief guest for this evening, Mr. Anurag Agarwal, IAS and the Home Secretary, Chandigarh. I also extend a warm welcome to Architect SHIRISH BERI, who is the speaker of the evening, Architect Kapil Sethia, Chief Architect Chandigarh, and other dignitaries present here. This is the first time that Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy and Chandigarh College of Architecture have decided to team up for this great event. And previous to this,
Yeah, that's nice.
the college's relations with the CLK was through Neel Malhotra, its present chairman. And you could say that it's kind of comme si comme ça, that we were there, but you know, like two sides of the same coin, but one facing east, the other facing west. So this time, we thought that we have to get together, and then Dean came up with this proposal that Architect SHIRISH BERI is here and that we need to invite him to college. So thank you, Dean, for that. I don't know what SHIRISH BERI's lecture is going to be, but I'm quite sure
ऑडियो ओके
it
नहीं सर
is
ऑडियो
going
ऑडियो
to
बंद कर दिया उसने
animate the students of architecture from this college and
ऑडियो नहीं आ रही है
from
बंद कर
colleges surrounding Chandigarh. So I'm as curious as them, sir, to witness your presentation. I would like to, of course, welcome is there, but my thanks are due to my junior colleague, Professor Neel Malhotra. He is the main person, the backbone of all events. And 1 minute he is discussing with me some plan of the event that we have to organize. Next minute he is in sector 16 and third minute he is in Panchkula. So he is such a great keeper of time and great manager, and he does this without driving a car. And sometimes he wants to be dropped there, and once I asked him that how did you come back? Auto mein aa gaya tha. So that is our Bhim, and indeed very grateful to you, Bhim, for all this. And lastly, I would like to thank again Architect Shirish Beri for being with us here today, and not in the least, my profuse thanks to Mr. Anurag Agarwal for consenting to be the chief guest for this evening. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you everybody. Welcome to you all.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Bhim Malhotra to please come on stage and address the audience.
ये लाइट पड़ रही है, आपको को थोड़ा करना। So good evening everyone. So thank you Pradeep Bhagat ji, our principal, for very encouraging words, and first of all I will thanks and welcome Shri Anurag Agarwal ji, Home Secretary Chandigarh Administration, Shri Shirish Beri ji, Mrs. Beri, and our Architect Kapil Sethia ji, Bhaga ji, SD Sharma ji, और भी काफ़ी बैठे होंगे, मुझे नाम याद नहीं आ रहे. सो थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक्स फॉर एवरीवन. जो अभी मैं आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेज को बहुत प्यार करता हूँ, ये मेरा घर है. आई लाइक आर्किटेक्चर कॉलेज एंड स्टूडेंट्स वेरी मच. और ये मेरा अपना घर है. पिछले 1.5 साल से एक छोटा सा घर मेरा और भी बना हुआ है, चंडीगढ़ ललित कला अकेडमी. तो मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगा कि जो मेरा छोटा सा घर है वो चल के अपने इस घर में आया है, और भगत जी ने उसका बहुत दिल से स्वागत किया है. तो ये एक बहुत अच्छा लगा कि उस दिन हम बैठे थे भगत जी और मैं, हम आपस में जैसे MOU साइन नहीं होता दोनों, उसमें ऐसे लग रहा जैसे हमारे बीच में कोई शिमला समझौता हो रहा है. तो वी शेयर अवर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. तो जिस तरह से जो हमारा आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चर का जो हमारा पर्पज था, हमने अक्टूबर में VV दोषी जी को बुलाया था आर्ट और आर्किटेक्चर के बीच में जो दीवार है उसको ब्रेक करने का. तो उसका हमारे पास बट वी हैव गुड एक्सीलेंट रिस्पॉन्स कि उसकी वजह से हम नेक्स्ट हम शिरीष जी को यहाँ लेके आए हैं. और जो हमारा वो उस जो आर्ट और आर्किटेक्चर को हमारा ब्रेक करने का जो पर्पज था वो हमारा काफ़ी अच्छी तरह से सोल्व हुआ है. क्योंकि हमारे जो अभी आर्ट एग्जीबिशन हुई है, हमारे आर्किटेक्चर स्टूडेंट ने बहुत एक्टिवली पार्टिसिपेट किया, उसमें अवार्ड वगैरह भी लिए हैं, उनका एक्टिव पार्टिसिपेशन भी हुआ. सो ये जो हमारा एफर्ट था आर्ट और आर्किटेक्चर को जोड़ने का, इनको ब्रेक करने का जो बीच में दीवार है, तो वी आर ट्राइंग अवर बेस्ट. फ्यूचर में भी ऐसे करते रहेंगे. बाकी जो शिरीष जी के बारे में मैं 2-3 दिन से शिरीष जी से बात कर रहा हूँ, तो मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है कि इंडिया में बड़े सारे फेस्टिवल सेलिब्रेट होते हैं, लोग बर्थडे सेलिब्रेट करते हैं और एनिवर्सरी सेलिब्रेट करते हैं. जो ही इज द मैन हु सेलिब्रेट लाइफ, मतलब कि तो लाइफ तो सेलिब्रेट. जो इनसे बात कर, जो अभी मैंने इनसे हमने इनका रिज्यूम मंगवाया था, तो जो उन्होंने रिज्यूम भेजा, जिस तरीके से इन्होंने भेजा, तो उससे मुझे लगा कि वेरी सिस्टमेटिकली एंड डिसिप्लिन मैनर, चाहे हम टीचर हैं चाहे हम स्टूडेंट्स हैं, हमें सबको सीखना चाहिए. तो ही सो सिस्टमेटिकल, डिसिप्लिन, और हर बात में ये स्पेस की बात करते हैं, इंटरनल स्पेस, साइकोलॉजिकल स्पेस, फिजिकल स्पेस. तो स्पेस के साथ कल्चरल स्पेस, तो काफ़ी सारे स्पेसिस के बारे में बात करते हैं ये। और दूसरी बात, मैंने इनकी बुक पढ़ी, बुक को तो मैं ज़्यादातर कोई बुक को 15-20 मिनट में मैं ऐसे पढ़ के देख के बस वो फिनिश हो जाती है। इनकी बुक मुझे पता नहीं चला 1 घंटा कैसे बीत गया। उसमें मैं देख रहा था कि उन्होंने एक जगह लिखा कि मैडनेस इज द स्पार्क ऑफ लाइफ एंड मैन नीड्स सम मैडनेस। तो क्या बात करते हैं ये, ग्रेट। तो मैडनेस का मतलब है पैशन, जुनून। तो आप सब में जो आर्किटेक्चर स्टूडेंट्स हो, आप में भी वो मैडनेस का होना जरूरी है। मैडनेस नीड्स इन लाइफ। तो इनका मैंने पढ़ा तो ही इज सिंपली ग्रेट एंड बड़े सिंपल, बड़े डाउन टू अर्थ और बहुत ही नो ईगो। मज़ा आ गया इनसे, मैंने 1-2 दिन बातें की, मिला इनसे। तो उस वे में मैंने देखा है कि आर्टिस्ट हो या आर्किटेक्ट हो, उन सब में ये वाली क्वालिटीज पहले होनी चाहिए जो तो फिर ही वो अपनी उसकी क्रिएटिविटी का स्कोप काफ़ी रहता है। तो मैं आपको ये रिक्वेस्ट करता हुआ कि थोड़ा सा मैडनेस आप भी लेके आओ अपने अंदर। सो थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, Lisa, for those heartfelt words. The Chandigarh College of Architecture and the Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy feel privileged and honored to have been given the opportunity to host Architect Shirish Beri and organize this event. It is not every day that we are provided the wonderful opportunity to watch and listen to one of the stalwarts of Indian architecture. There are 2 ways in which an architect's prowess in his field of work can be understood. The most common one is by reading a list of the well-known projects which have been designed by them and the subsequent awards they have received. The second, which is quite rare, includes not just the achievements but also the evidence of their passion and drive for the field. Architect Beri belongs to the latter group. His work strives to address his concerns of man moving further away from nature, from his fellow human beings and from his own self. This attitude towards architecture and life appears to have been a part of him since his early days as an architecture student at CEPT Ahmedabad. He felt that after studying architecture for 6 years, it was necessary to uncondition oneself. He instead built a small cottage on the edge of the Western Ghats to work in and live a simple, solitary life amidst nature. His designs address the issues of sustainability by trying to achieve a sense of harmony with various natural and man-made elements. He has designed a number of campuses for national and regional level institutions of research, rehabilitation, healthcare and education, along with various other types of buildings. I now hand over the stage to Architect Shirish Beri and request him to please commence with his AV presentation. So while they are setting up the screen, I would request you to come on stage, please. I would also like to request Mr. Anurag Agarwal to grace the dais. I request Mr. Anurag Agarwal to please present Mr. Architect Shirish Beri a token of our gratitude and thanks.
Lights? Would they want lights?
या पीछे
Sorry for doing it.
No problem. Thank you.
That's from Mr. Doshi, I guess.
No, that's my house.
That's
my,
your
I've designed it.
Wow, they printed it.
They printed it for this. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Yeah. And they have even printed my mugs. And they showed it.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
This is the small emperor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Just another second. May I please request Professor Pradeep Bhagat to present a token to Mr. Anurag Agarwal?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Okay, you'll have my design in your house.
Yeah. Thank you. God's there. Yeah. And they would be back.
पहला स्लाइड लगा के रखो।
Thank you very much. Please bear with us for 2 minutes. We are just getting the screen fixed and then we shall start with Architect Beri's presentation.
I will also thank Mr. Dinesh Vattas जिन्होंने हमें शिरीष जी को मिलवाया और I will also thank Chaitanya who designed this bamboo design and also thank the member of Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy and the staff of Chandigarh College of Architecture.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you all in this capital of modernist architecture. And I'm very much thankful to Professor Bhim Malhotra of Lalit Kala Academy and the Chandigarh College of Architecture for inviting me here. And of course, to Professor Rajneesh Vattas for making this possible. And also, I thank you all students for taking all these efforts to set this up. Normally, I show my work and my life together, but today, I have been asked by the Lalit Kala Academy to talk more about architecture and art. So, what I feel is that all good sensitive art, as well as architecture, springs from the experiencing of this fascinating exuberance of life. This experience is so intense and intimate that it seeks expression through various mediums in various persons. It can be through poetry, painting, sculpture, music, as well as architecture. With this expression, the artist, architect celebrates that exuberant vitality of life, empathizes with it. He or she celebrates its beauty and ugliness, its joys and sorrows, its hopes and aspirations, and the totality of our human existence. Just look at this sky, the clouds, these flowers, the lush green landscapes, or the colorful landscapes like this, the wonderful trees that we have around us, their flora, the butterflies, this bird in flight and the deer in sprint, or the swimming fish, whatever simple textures of the various trees that we have here, the textures in the sand and the water, the textures that we have in our architectural building materials like the textures on the stone and the tiles and the concrete, the colors, and the moods of different people and the variety of people that we have in this world. All this, I think, is a miracle. It is all a miracle, and life is a miracle, and our art and architecture should be the celebration of this miracle. Celebration is to make the mundane and the ordinary into something special and enjoyable. It is an act, a process of showing appreciation, gratitude, and connecting with nature, other fellow humans, and with our own selves. I have been contemplating on this evolution of art and architecture to what it is today for quite some time. And I've realized that for the past thousands of years, architecture or art was not separated from the daily lives of the people. It was a spontaneous expression of the people to their surroundings, to their understandings, and to their experiences. Right from the cave painters or the cave dwellers, they expressed themselves through these cave paintings. Later, people did some beautiful architecture, vernacular architecture. This is not done by any architects, this is done by the people. And these were spontaneous expressions of almost the entire society. They would paint their cave dwellings, homes, doors, make sculptures to express themselves. Look at this painting now, or these which we have in India. Or to express their cultural beliefs, to sing and dance for their joys and disappointments of daily life, and to celebrate nature, God, and life. They built houses to shelter themselves. And art and architecture just happened. It just happened spontaneously. Simple things like this. This is art also, the way people display things. So, unlike today, when they have become specialized domains of special persons branded as architects and artists, I ask myself, how and when did this transformation happen? When did paintings and sculptures abandon the common man and get deified and embalmed in closed claustrophobic buildings called museums? There is not a fixed time that this happened, but we have to question ourselves, when did we as common people get deprived of the right to express ourselves? When you ask somebody, an adult or a child, to paint, oh, I can't, I'm not an artist. No, you can. And everybody can celebrate this life through his own creativity and art. But now what has happened is, when and why did this art and architecture become so commercialized and commoditized? With the popular media's contribution, they also got tagged with prices and became investment opportunities. So when people lived a full, rich, holistic, unified life, sensitive to the five senses and beyond, varied expressions in varied mediums emerged in response to this fascinating life experience. Then one was not branded as a painter in order to paint and sketch, nor branded as a professional writer or poet to write a novel or write poetry. With the then blurred boundaries between these various arts, they all happened without one's intentional coaxing or forcing. Sometimes, in heightened states of sensitivity, the boundaries between our senses also blur, and I succumb to synesthesia. Synesthesia is a state of mind where there is a union of all the various senses. In that state, in that sensitive state, I can smell paintings, I can see music, or I can caress sounds. I had goosebumps on me when I first read the famous German writer Goethe saying, he wrote, "The hands want to see and the eyes want to caress." I literally had goosebumps on me. Or when Nietzsche said, "The dancer has his ear in his toes." Architect Johanni Palasma's book, Eyes of the Skin. Do you have this book in the library? If you don't, please get it, it's fantastic. Eyes of the Skin did the same to me. Similarly, I tend to experience architecture as art and art as architecture. Like this is a building that I did in Pune, where it can be a sculpture to live in. Or this mosque in Iran, which I visited last year, which can be art. There's a very integrated relationship between art and architecture. Or this Swayambhunath temple in Nepal. This is a fantastic example of an inseparable, integrated art and architecture, an integral art and architecture. Thus, because of this intrinsic relationship between art and architecture, I would ask my students, like I used to conduct these workshops in some architecture colleges for about 3-4 days. So, whenever I gave a design problem, the students would go and get to the drawing board, like in their drawing board and set square, T square, they would go there. Or nowadays they go to the computer or go on the net. So what I used to tell them, that first day, I don't want you to do any drawing. I want you to relate this architecture problem to your life, your understanding of life, and try and express it the next day in any other medium than architecture. So some students did a painting to express their design concept. Somebody wrote a poem to express his design concept. somebody did a drama or skit to express the design concept. And it was very beautiful, because first the students would complain, they would say, oh, we've never written poetry and all that. But next day they would come up with some such interesting stuff that then it was very easy for me to pick up a few words or pick up a few musical notes or pick up a few colors and say, okay, this can be your concept, and now try and translate it into an architectural language, into an architectural vocabulary. And it did wonders. I mean, the students were very, they were freed from their typical way of approaching a design problem, because they could relate the architectural design problem to life. So, while on this journey of rediscovering art and architecture, I am intrigued to see what Mr. Bhim talked about, space. I am intrigued to see that space in different forms and manifestations seem to prevail in all arts as a common ingredient. It's a common ingredient. Let's see now, like space is the central medium of architecture, not bricks, not concrete, not tiles, but space is our medium. And architecture lends quality and form to a formless space. The painter articulates the two-dimensional space on his canvas. The sculptor plays around with space through his different volumes, forms, solids and voids. The dancer creates space with her movements. The space occupied by each sound and the quality of space between the sounds creates music. And even in our scriptures, when I studied this concept of space, in our scriptures they have been very, they have thought of avakasha, space, as a very important ingredient of our life. And they talk about two kinds of spaces basically. One is the inner space, which is within us, which is immeasurable, of the Chidakash or the Chitakash, which is the space within our conscience, within our mind. And they talk about the Bhutakash, which is the outer space of physical action, which is the measurable space. Now, both these, when I've dwelt on this, I found that both these are always interacting with each other, these spaces, and influencing each other. The inner space that we have kind of creates the outer space that we are living in, and the outer space also influences our inner space. I'll give you two simple examples. Like this outer space that we live in today in our cities is a reflection of our inner space, which is greedy, consumeristic, commercial. When our inner space has become like that, the outer space expresses itself in this manner. And the other way around, when the inner space is tranquil, calm, peaceful, we have outer spaces created like this. This is the Roinji Garden in Japan, where I have experienced that when we get out of the bus, these tourists are all there shouting, talking loudly to each other, yakety yak, yakety yak. But as soon as they come here, this outer space influences them so much that they sit all around and they sit in silence. So this outer space has an impact on our inner space. To speak very simply, if you go to the mountains or if you go to the seashore, that outer space in nature also does a similar thing to our inner space. So all our feelings, attitudes, priorities, our daily behavior, and all sensory art emanates from this inner space of ours. Thus, all art becomes expression of the artist's life, his understandings, his ideas, his beliefs, and emotions. So as a human being and as an architect, I ask, can I celebrate life by striking the right balance, dynamic balance between this inner space and the outer space? Wouldn't I be celebrating life if my spaces, my architecture, my colors, my paintings, and words, is my poetry, connect with nature and thereby help man to come closer to nature. I think connecting with nature is a great celebration in our lives. So in my work too, I ask myself in terms of nature also, can my architecture celebrate its friendships with the trees and the greens? This was my farmhouse, and it was located by precisely locating these 5 trees around and building the house in and around these trees. These are the trees which you see all around. This is in Konkan. So see, now this tree has become a part of the architectural vocabulary. The architectural vocabulary need not again restrict itself to walls and doors and floors, but it can extend to the tree beyond, to the skies, to the bird outside, and so on. Here you will see that the interior, landscape and architecture are all integrated into one. This was at a beach house. I created the entrance in such a way that I could make friends with these 2 trees. As I came inside, I would kind of touch these trees and say hello whenever I entered, and when I went out, I would say bye-bye. And I thought there was some kind of a rapport, definitely, between us. This was a recent project in Nagpur where there was 12 acres of site. The clients wanted me to build somewhere else, but then when I saw this banyan tree and another beda tree on the other side, I felt that this tree has to be part of the architectural language and architectural space. And this is the tree which will bring about that sense of peace for the tired and nerves. Because these people come here to relax from the cities, so it really soothes their nerves. This is the tree, and the house is built around it. It has become an integral part of the family, of the ambience, and from wherever you go in the house, you would see the tree, as you would see it later on. In this project, when nobody knows that there is a tree inside this house. Only when they come to the entrance and open the door, they see the tree, and the tree seems to be doing pretty well here, and seems to be happy, as well as the clients who are very happy to have this companion in their house. This tree has a different story also. This is for a school building, Sanjeevan Vidyalaya. Like there are a number of trees on this site, so I had to build a building in a very design the building in an organic way to save each and every tree. And this tree became the focal point of the Learning Living cluster for these primary school students. When I visited this site after about 5-6 years, and I was talking to the teachers, I asked them, how is it like? And they said, we are very happy here. The children are very happy. And one interesting thing she told me was, see how architecture can act as an agent of social change. As architecture can act value to your life. She said that when these kids were asked to write an essay on my best friend, most of these small kids wrote an essay on this tree as their best friend. So now what will happen is these kids, when they grow up, they will hesitate to cut a tree because of the rapport and the relationship that they have developed with this tree in their formative years. This was a computational mathematics lab for the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, TIFR, Pune. There also because it was a very sophisticated facility which was going to work on the language of computers, the director of the place told me, and he took me to the room and he said, this is what I want, he drew a rectangle, and he had the idea of having a ACP clad and glazed building, typical IT, the IT look, the modern. I didn't say anything, I said, let's go and see the site. So when I saw the site, I saw these beautiful trees on the side, and I asked him, why can't your scientists sit and work under a tree? That had never struck him, so he thought for a while and he says, okay, so he said, why not? So he gave laptops, very high-end laptops to his scientists, and we created this kind of a semi-open workspace. There is a covered air-conditioned workspace inside, but there is an additional workspace under these where the scientists could sit and work like this. And he told me that they were very happy to have this kind of a space which took them closer to nature. Even our bathrooms could have this kind of could connect us with nature. Like when I have my bath here, I sometimes have the sunlight streaming in, or if I have a bath in the night, I have the moonlight streaming in also. Then can my design celebrate its homage to the million-year-old natural heritage, like of these rocks? This was in Hyderabad. I was asked to design a laboratory for the conservation of endangered species, and the clients were many. It was the Ministry of Science and Environment, Delhi, then Central Zoo Authority, Delhi, Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, and so on, because they were going to work on the reproductive biology of endangered species here. And when I went to the site, what struck me was these rocks, very huge rocks of almost 10 meters, 12 meter height, which were there. But our site was ending here. So I requested my clients, all government clients, to acquire more very uneven and rugged and undulating land on this side, and give a better piece of flat land to the farmers on this side somewhere. And fortunately they agreed. And because of that, the farmers were happy they got a flat, level, nice land here. And I was happy that I could get this land so that I could build my building around these rocks as if it was my respectful homage to this natural heritage. See, if you see here, they had already started vandalizing and breaking away these rocks. Soon these rocks would have been broken. This was before. So when this rock and this rock is the same, and after building, we kind of rounded off this rock here so that it looked a little better. It didn't look wounded like that. This was before. This was my office space for 2-3 days. I sat here and did my basic design, and this is what it has turned out to be. Then can my spaces celebrate healing through the rapport with nature? Like I've done a number of healthcare institutions, hospitals. So where again the question was, can architecture contribute to this healing process? And how can it contribute? It can contribute to natural light, natural ventilation. It can contribute through the nature, by bringing nature inside the building. This is a hospital which is almost about 500,000 square feet in area. More than 500,000 square feet, 5 lakh square feet. This is inadequate now, so we have done another almost 4 lakh square feet of hospital, so they have almost 9 lakh square feet of hospital space there. But if you see here, there's no artificial light on, all natural light, natural ventilation through all different courtyards. The same hospital, the adjoining courtyard. This is another hospital in the city, where again I thought that the architectural space, with the help of nature, should contribute to the healing process. This is the reception area. This is in a very tight site in the city, and is about 250 bedded hospital. This was a craniofacial hospital again. What I wanted was, and it seems to work, is that when the patients come from all these villages or city, town or wherever, as soon as they come in, when they see the light and when they see nature, and they don't feel they're in a hospital, and that kind of psychologically, it kind of enlivens them. In this same hospital, I said, okay, we have the entrance lobby like this. Why not the OT, operation theatre? And we have an operation theater like this, and with full sterility, because this is a double glass glazing, completely sealed, but at the same time, we have the view of the terrace garden here. Then I also ask, why should a painting be a static entity? Can I not introduce living, metamorphizing, can I have some water, please? Paintings which will keep changing every time. Thank you so much. So in my designs, I try to include nature through something like this. This window was strategically located in such a way that it framed the casuarina tree outside. Every day that painting changes because of the light. Every season it changes because of the number of leaves and this thing happening. Every time it changes because there's a bird coming and sitting here, or something like that it happens. So these are the living paintings that I introduce in my work. This is that tree, the banyan tree which we talked about earlier. This is a recent lake house which has that tree inside. So here also I thought that why be inside and be cut off from the lake? Why can't we have a living painting like this from inside the living room or in the dining room? This was taken at dusk time. In the morning it looks very different again. The same place. Hello? Yeah. Same place looks very different in the morning. This is my lake house. So in case any of you come to Kolhapur, this is 1 hour's drive from there. And this is my living room. This is the living room on this side. So if I sit in the living room, on the living room furniture, then this is what I see. We have wild bisons coming and grazing here. And this is something that I want to tell all of you students. We as architects are in an enviable profession because we don't need to sit in our office every day of the month like doctors have to. Doctors and lawyers, they have to be in the office because they have to deal with the patients, deal with the clients every time. As architects, right from my first day after graduation, I have been following this lifestyle where actually I think she mentioned it, but my father had kept aside some money for my post-graduation at Harvard or MIT after my graduation from CEPT, Ahmedabad. So I thought about it and I said that after a certain stage it's very important to unlearn and uncondition rather than learn in architecture. So I declined the offer, but I asked him for the money. I said, you give me the money, and with that first money I built my first cottage at the edge of the Western Ghats, and I started living a very simple life, and I did a number of designs then which were first published in 1980 in Inside Outside, called me the Inside Outside man or whatever. So, but what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to be in the urban rat race all the time. You don't have to spend 1 hour of commuting from your office, home to your office or wherever. Even today, I spent about 8 days a month here doing my designing. Earlier, I used to spend much more time in these places, and it has helped. It has helped me to create these buildings which you are seeing now. This is my studio at the upper level where I do my work, architecture work, and that's a terrace with a sit-out chair and table. That's where I sit every evening whenever I'm there. This is our city house, Kolhapur house also, where again we have located the windows in such a way that they allow for greenery to pop inside the house, or they allow for the views of they frame the views of the sunrise from here. So we're talking about nature, connecting with nature. So we'll talk about a couple of poems. I'll read out a couple of poems which are relating to that. This is my lake house, and this is the poem that I wrote when I first started living here. Fitting myself snugly on the hill slope facing the lake, I started this new dialogue with its lapping waves and rustling forest leaves, with the mewing peacocks, cackling wildfowl, the grunting sambars and the twittering birds, assimilating within the shepherd's flute tunes that float over the waters and the setting sun's colorful palette. With this, I gradually learned to converse with the lake's eloquent silence and its mute reflections. Probing its enigmatic depth seems like delving deeper into my own self. Somehow or the other, I always, wherever I'm here, I always feel a certain sense of empathy. It may be with people, maybe with anything around, you know. So I just try to put these feelings across here. Why do I feel satiated? That is, satisfied. Why do I feel satiated when my plants are watered after a dry spell? Why is it that I feel free and happy when our dog is untied? What makes me bubble within at the sight of the babbling, frothing stream or waterfall? Why does a feeling of weightlessness engulf me at the sight of that bird's lovely flight? Why is it that I feel balanced and harmonious within a well-designed space? So, I'll just take you through some of my sketches and paintings. This is a watercolor which I did long back. This was in Port Blair, Andaman Islands, where there was a storm, a cyclone hit. And this is very near your place. This was a painting which I did long back in Kasauli. This is a waterfall which became my great friend, because during the rainy season I would go and sit under it and have my bath during the rains and when I was staying there. Kerala, my favorite banyan tree, one of its roots. So wouldn't my architecture celebrate life, again, if it helps in bringing people closer to each other? We talked about getting people closer to nature. Now I'm talking about a celebration where people come near each other. Can my work celebrate friendships between people? Could celebration and learning happen in my designs through these interactive spaces? This is how that space has become lively now within that Hyderabad project. Simple small spaces that we create as nooks and niches in different institutes, which help people to sit together and interact and thereby learn from each other. This is the amphitheater that we did in Mysore for Institute of Management Development, where this could be used like this for informal seatings, or like this. This is the same space. Or it could be used for a jam session or a musical session with people standing on the terrace and watching also. Can it celebrate vulnerability, openness and inclusiveness in place of today's invulnerable gated communities? This is very important, because people want to close themselves, try and make themselves very invulnerable. Actually, the whole architecture changes when we look at spaces which are more vulnerable. if we become more vulnerable to life, to nature, or we become more open, can these spaces celebrate human dignity? These are spaces in that hospital. I mean, it's very widely used like this. The OPD in this hospital is about 2,000 to 2,500 people every day. This is an Ayurveda hospital, so I created at the central foyer, I created a space to house the Dhanvantari statue. And Dhanvantari is the god of health and medicine in Ayurveda. And the patients as well as their relatives, they congregate here every evening for their bhajans. This is in that management institute where the arrival plaza it has these kind of 3-4 linkages. So people coming from either every place, they have chance meetings here and thereby come closer to each other. This is an Institute of Technology and Engineering campus, again, which had a sloping side, so we could create this kind of amphitheater and created the canteen here so that people from both sides could come and sit out here. And the space is used in different ways. This is a drug de-addiction center in Pune, which has again a few very interesting stories, but I may not dwell into them because we don't have that much time. But these spaces also become very important for the healing of the patients, because when I talk to the clients, I ask them about the psychology of these patients. They say that these patients need to be the drug addicts or the alcohol addicts. If they are by themselves and alone, then they become more depressed. So it is important for them to interact with each other. So we created this small amphitheater and stage where they can watch from the terrace and be here, have their cup of chai. And thereby, and these spaces, the addicts who have been cured here, they have talked to me afterwards and they said that these spaces have helped them to be better. So I wrote a few words about my relationship with people. Loving everybody, I miss nobody. The joy within feels the joy without. A full life has nothing to fulfill. It's very interesting. A full life has nothing to fulfill. So we don't have to run around after things. If we feel this fullness within ourselves, then a full life has nothing to fulfill. Being nowhere, one belongs everywhere. How beautiful is this detached attachment, being separate and belonging to at the same time. The few sketches that I do during my travels and all that, people whom I meet. So we are talking about people now. So these sketches and the drawings and the poems are related to people. And when my art, architecture, helps in taking me closer to my own self, isn't that a true celebration? Can my work celebrate that essential silence and pause in our lives? This is Agriculture College. This was the spiritual happening which we pardon, sorry for the spelling. It was an international design competition, and out of 1,100 entries from all over the world, our entry was selected for one of the awards. This is a space that we have created in a hospital. In many hospitals, we try to create a space like this where the patients or the relatives can de-stress themselves. Could it celebrate individual introspections and aspirations? Can my spaces celebrate one's inner calling? Like in that lake house recently, I created this space which acts as a bed also for guests in the night. But this is my favorite place to sit also, because this is like this, with the beautiful view of the lake and the grill here. Spaces like this. This is the edge of the lake, and I wrote once that out of the blue, something descends on me. Something very heavy as well as light. The isness of being. And these spaces that we're talking about, to be with oneself, I think this silence and this pause is very important. So, only in silence one understands the futility of words, the futility of symbols. In silence, one realizes that the map is not the territory. In silence, one does not justify, compare, impress, manipulate. One does not assert, demand, or instigate. In total silence, there is no becoming, no movement, only being with an expansive awareness spreading from the center towards the circumferential infinity. This is another one which I wrote in the same lines. A wandering cloud wanders in the blue sky, plays with the wind and sky, becomes the wind and sky. No cloud left. A water over the stove boils. This is a real experience. The water over the stove boils, plays with the heat and air, becomes heat and air. No water left. Watching this, I become the cloud. I become the water. No Shirish left. Some abstract doodlings. And I also ask myself, can my art, architecture, celebrate a sustainable way of life? Please see the difference here, because we talk about sustainable architecture, green architecture, but I'm talking about a sustainable way of life, because that is what is important. The green architecture today, as all of you know, many times has been, it's kind of, like even a 5-star hotel or Ambani's 28 stories building can be called green. It can be certified green. A building which has such a heavy environmental footprint can be sustainable. But for me, true sustainability are our attitudes in life. Attitudes of simplicity, attitudes of caring and concern for our environment and for our future generations. So can my designs celebrate simplicity and sanctity? Can they celebrate caring and sharing? Like this is my living room at the lake house. Very simple, made from laterite stone with carpet pieces on top. And the view of the lake that we saw earlier was from here. When you sit here, that's the view that we get. This is cowdung and mud floor. And when I sit here talking to you people who are sitting on this side, I'm in the living room. Now, when I feel hungry, and if the table is laid here, I just turn around and I'm in the dining room, dining space. And after the food, I can just lie down here and have my afternoon siesta. So, it can be very simple. I had some other slides which are just the opposite. Living rooms which would cost almost 50 lakhs or 25 lakhs just for the living room interiors and all that. But is it necessary? I have a wonderful painting of this green here. Another painting of mine here. And this is our bedroom, which is at the level of the ventilation and view of this lake. This is a mat which is made by the local shepherds called Jinn. And this is my office. I mean, like some of the works which you saw there, their origin happens here. And most of these, I used to do, a lot of big works, but the origin, the basic designs and the design concepts and all that happened in very humble, simple workplaces. Each of my, even today at my lake house, my workspace is like this. I sit on the squat on the floor and work like this. Sorry. This is Bangalore, of the Krishnamurti Foundation School in Bangalore, the residence for the director. Or we were talking about this living dining separately, but sometimes we can also have multiple use of the spaces, which would save on the resources considerably. So at the beach house, we had this acting as a living room. For when we had to dine, we would pull these things together nearer to the table and it became a dining space. And if we had some guests in the night, the table and the bolsters went here, and these cushions were joined, and it became a bedroom. And it's very simple, and actually the more we simplify our lives, the more beautiful and it becomes, more rich it becomes. I had read a book called The Wastemakers by Vance Packard long back, and it had a very beautiful dedication in the beginning. He says, I dedicate this book to my parents who did not confuse a good life with the number of goods they had. It was very beautiful, I thought, and I have experienced that myself. So can they celebrate self-sufficiency with the minimum dependence on outside resources, energy and technology? Like in this Hyderabad building, we did not import a single stone from outside. All the stones were procured from our site itself, boulders broken and used for the building, as well as the roads, as well as the compound wall. So the embodied energy of this building was very low, because it did require much energy to transport. Even here, for this project in Nagpur, the farmhouse which we saw, all this stone was from the site itself. It was no stone was imported from outside. Everything was built like these stones. And now in the city, we have made this house where it has been made completely from, almost completely from recycled and old materials. Even the reinforcement steel is brought from the scrap market and used. The steel columns which you see here, the steel structure that you see here is all bought from the scrap market. Not a single tile on this building is new. It is all from old demolished buildings. We have cleaned them and painted them and used them. Even these stone flooring that you see here. Then all the rainwater from this roof is collected through this pipe, through the filter. It goes to the rainwater harvesting tank below. We have our solar panels for heating as well as electricity. So we are trying to be as self-sufficient as possible, and with minimum dependence on the grid, as well as with the minimum embodied energy. The wood also which is used in this house is from all buildings which have been demolished. These strips which have been made, they shade the building also. Then I had GI wires going on them, so the building becomes the support for the food system, for the vegetables to grow. Here too, the tiles which you see, this bathroom has 8 different kinds of tiles, because beggars are not choosers. I would go to the tile yard, ask them which are the tiles which they have discarded, which they don't want. which are broken, damaged. And I would get those tiles, and there are 8 different types of tiles which have been used in this bathroom in a different pattern. These tiles also, the Vita Gold tiles, these are all waste tiles, waste material tiles. And then the building acts, grows vegetables like this and like this on it. And then we also have the bird bath where the birds come and enjoy. So when I talk about sustainability, I always question this word development. The dictionary meaning of development is to make something bigger and better. But we forget the 50% of the meaning. We only make things bigger. We don't make them better. Most of our cities in India, almost all, we have this problem. We say that the city has developed. Means what? It has become grown big. It has an airport now. It has this. It has that. But the quality of air is bad. The quality of water is bad. The commuting is bad. Transport is bad. So I ask: is progress measured in terms of crores of rupees investment and running costs and production tonnage? Is it measured in the length of your pipes and number of computer terminals? Or is progress measured in terms of the well-being, peace, self-reliance, contentment and happiness that it fosters, and the food, clothing, shelter and health that it provides? So these are the questions we must ask every time we take a decision on development or conservation. Nicobar port. So coming towards the end of the talk, I think that art as a symbolic gesture from the results from the architect's desire to add a new meaning as well as a new dimension to the overall sense of the building. Art also expresses the building's function in a symbolic way. Sometimes it can be participatory. Okay. Like this is a sculpture when I was young. I did that from scrap materials for a residential school campus. And after the sculpture was completed, it rained. And it's a very dry area and drought-prone area. And because the rain happened, we called this the rain god. And we danced around it. Then this is a National Center for Cell Sciences that we designed in Pune for the Department of Biotechnology. There also, this is the first phase. We created that mural on the wall which symbolized the human cell and biological this thing. And later on now we have this connecting bridge here from the upper level which is framed by that mural. The mural looks different from inside, which frames the university building and all that also. Public art is also, that's why I think introduction of art in architecture helps in the creation of meaningful pauses that make us think, make us more aware of the space, enhance the quality of space, and also unfold a new cognitive dimension in that architecture. Thus, art has found an important space in public spaces like this. See how beautifully these steps have been painted. And this is one way. Sometimes they painted it like a piano, keyboard and things like that, different ways. Or like this. This is public art. And this is to make the people aware of some classical masterpieces. This is an interesting sculpture. When we are moving around here, we don't know what this thing is. Why are these things happening here? But in the night, when there is a light cast on this sculpture from this side, the sculpture casts this shadow and it looks as if he is throwing these things out. So at night only you can visualize this sculpture in this manner. So art in any form can transform the mundane to a different, no, and I also like to show you a few of my other architectural sketches, because we saw some sketches of nature. Some other sketches which I've done at different times, some many years back. Both these sketches are during my student days. They are so old. This is Petra in Jordan. This is Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Gaudi. This is Piazza San Marco, Piazza Vecchio in Florence. This is Venice. Santa Sofia in Istanbul. This is a monastery in Ladakh. This was my student day sketch of the assembly hall, which is done more than 45 years back. And this is the Sydney Opera. This is the Sydney Opera. So, art in any form can transform the mundane to a different level of awareness. Its participation as well as integration in architecture, especially in today's quantitative, consumeristic, commercial and conditioned atmosphere, becomes very important and almost necessary. Art can lend a much needed element of spontaneity, mystery and spirituality to the contemporary architectural scenario. It can even instigate man to rethink his attitudes about his physical environment. So, I question, in a society that is suffering from the fatty degeneration of its conscience, where our single-minded pursuit of money is impoverishing our mind, shriveling our imagination, and desiccating our heart, don't you think that our art and architecture should guide our society towards greater simplicity, sanctity, integrity, and freedom? This is a very beautiful symbolic sculpture of a twisted barrel outside the UNO building. This is a kind of a sculpture about the spiritual awakening, and this is a sculpture about freedom. My architecture seeks joy, a sense of wonder, and a celebration by befriending the simple, the mundane, and the ordinary. I have started realizing the full significance of and meaning of what Samuel Mockbee says. Are you students familiar with Samuel Mockbee's work? He is an American architect who does a lot of work for the downtrodden and neglected. So he writes very beautifully. He says, Samuel Mockbee says, as architects, our goodness is more important than our greatness. As architects, our goodness is more important than our greatness, and our compassion more eventful than our passion. My works are not designed to create iconic, grand, exhibitionist sculptural forms that attract the eye, but they are designed to create more humane, socially relevant, more natural and sustainable spaces that nurture the human spirit. So when we experience ourselves as this fascinating universal energy and strike a rapport of empathy with it, then every sound becomes music, all colors become a painting, words become poetry, movement becomes dance, the formless becomes a form, mind becomes meditation, and life becomes a celebration. So let us celebrate life. Let us celebrate life with spaces inspired by the emptiness, with forms inspired by the formless, with simplicity inspired by the richness of restraint, Sanyam we call it. with reason inspired by the layered mystery, with knowledge inspired by the depths of wisdom, with music inspired by the pregnant silence, and with the celebration of being inspired by our love of life. Thank you so much.
I think after watching that presentation and the video, words fail us because it takes us back to the basics and takes us back to simplicity in a world which is getting more and more complex by the day. And forgive me, sir, but you mentioned that your projects are not iconic. I think they are masterpieces in their own regard, and they achieve what a lot of people only claim to achieve, and that's the integration between architecture, nature, and the people who use them. We also have an interaction session, so if anyone has any questions for Architect Beri, please raise your hands.
Good evening.
Yes.
I'm living here in...
Closer, please. I can't hear you.
I'm living here in Chandigarh for quite some time.
Yes.
And Chandigarh is famous for its architecture.
Yes.
And I have seen you also have been here around and got somehow influenced, I guess. What I want to say, don't you feel a little bit lonely on this planet, especially since the past 10, 20 years, where you are seeing so much of commercializing and rushed and money making and whatnot. You are coming here and say, make it simple. Celebrate life. Celebrate not money.
Yeah.
So my, not a question, but I somehow thought maybe you feel a little bit lonely in the community of architecture and community of human beings here around. So that's all what I would like to contribute. I would also say it was a real big pleasure for me to come here. I didn't want to come first, but then my friend, she's an artist, and she said, no, you have to come and listen what he has to say. It seems to be a very interesting thing. So it was very interesting, very enriching, and I think I have got lots of food, mental food, to take along and let it cycle in me. And when I'm up in the mountains, I think I experience some of what you are talking about it, and I'm very happy that I can experience that. And I can only encourage people to do that. Go into silence and listen to the birds and look inside you. And especially the architecture students who want to go in the rat race, do that, what Shirish has been trying to tell you. Go and experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your concern, but what happens is I do feel hurt or bad sometimes, but I'm not an activist. So what I tend to do is I try to follow that in my own way, at least for myself. And whoever kind of watches it, sees it, if they can get something out of it, then do it, it's fine. But as you say, I remembered a very beautiful sentence said by J. Krishnamurti about the state of the society when he was there also. He said that it is not a measure of health. It is not a measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Our society has become sick, and each one of us has to try to heal it in his own way. And your recommendation about to the students about not joining the rat race, recently I won an award, so the 3 lakh rupees, 300,000 rupees which I'm getting from that money, that award, I'm adding my own 15 lakh rupees to create a corpus or a fund for a graduating needy student from SEP, because that's my alma mater. I think I owe something to it. This money is meant, the interest from this money is meant to go to a student, a deserving student, financially as well as academically, to not do anything, to do nothing. I'm giving it as a scholarship to a graduate student from SEP, so that he or she does not run into join some office to work because they have to start earning. They don't run to a PG institute to start learning again, you know. But I want them to find themselves. I wanted them to pause. I wanted them to pause in their lives, and this money from that scholarship or fellowship or whatever you call it will help them to pause, because it will take care of their mundane day-to-day expenses for a few months. You know? So this is a small token gesture that I have started.
Mr. Berry, the presentation was excellent, and it enlightened me, and I suppose it enlightened everybody else. One thing I would like to add.
Closer.
Okay. One thing I would like to add: that nature itself is quite beautiful.
Yes.
And even if it is left untouched, still it gives us what we want.
Very good. True.
And another dimension is that external space needs manipulation for our own imagination, but inner space, it requires very little effort. And the architecture of thoughts, because for any action, thought have to come first. And whether we are streamlining our thoughts and for what purpose, what objective.
Sorry.
Okay. So, how to integrate the pattern of thoughts with the external environment so that a harmony can be built within our inner self and outer self. This harmony, if it is there, then a true celebration of life can happen. Okay, thank you.
I think yes. There are many ways of doing it. One is when you consider yourself as ourselves, when we consider ourselves as an integral part of this universal totality and wholeness. If we do that, then we experience this fullness, and that is why I don't experience this aloneness. Even in a society like this, I do not experience loneliness or this thing, because I feel a sense of fullness within me. And when this sense of fullness is there also, the greed also goes down. The greed also doesn't happen, you know, because when I'm already full, I don't need more and more. And when this state of acceptance and this state of flowing with the energy of life happens, then I guess harmony sets in on its own. But as you said, harmony is very important. And this needs to express itself through your work, through your daily actions, through everything. You know, it's not for the sake of talking, but it's to experience first and then talk.
Right, we have time for just one more question or comment.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
First of all, that was a very amazing presentation and it's related to something I'm searching about on these days. My question to you is, I'm sure you would have faced this in your career as an architect, that sometimes interacting with nature and architecture together can be a little apprehensive for people who are not architects. Because since we have studied it in detail, we know that it works. But for somebody who has only been surviving in a very complex world, sustainability is a very upcoming trend these days.
Sorry?
So sustainability is an upcoming trend and a lot of people are still not aware about it.
Okay.
So when you get a project like this, how do you go about convincing your clients for doing something like this, which is integration of nature and architecture together?
Yeah, it is an issue. Like most clients would like to have the expensive, shiny, gaudy, you know, things. They want to show off through architecture, through interiors. But I'm kind of choosy with my clients. I tend to, and fortunately I've been in a position, I don't know why, but I've been in a position where I choose my clients many times rather than the clients choosing me. Why? Because my needs are few. So even if I do even if I say no to a client, or if we don't get along, I can do well, but I can continue with my principles and my ideas about architecture and life. And there's also a saying in English that birds of a feather flock together. So there would be some clients, many clients who would harmonize with your way of, vibe with your way of thinking. And so I work with them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we are running pretty late. Just one last thing for the evening today. Professor Bhim Malhotra wants to present a token of appreciation to our principal, Professor Bhagat.
यार गगन कहाँ है? गगन लाइट कौन देगा?
So the reason for this is for the first successful collaborative venture between
I gave, but
Chandigarh
then-
College of Architecture
I
and
forget them already.
Audiovisual Academy.
But my name is there on the website, or anyone here, Shirish Berri, you write and you'll get the contact, mail ID and everything. What's your name?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That marks the end of today's program. A special thank you to our audience for their time and patience. I request the audience and our dignitaries to please join us for some refreshments near the entrance of the college. Thank you.